Welcome back to another episode of Word with Ty Brownlow. I am your host, Ty Brownlow. And remember, no one is worthless. No story is worthless. And today, ladies and gentlemen, I got a very special guest for you. I'll give you a couple of words about my guest. Careers, preparation, value, generational, all the way from Dumfries, Virginia. Everybody put your hands together for Mr. Arik. What's going on, brother? What's going on?
Pretty good, man. How you doing?
I'm good. Actually, I'm great, and I'm glad to have you on because we're here to talk about your program, Future Kings, which is a STEM program.
Yes.
Okay.
We get put into that box, but I think it was so much more than a STEM program.
Okay.
STEM is certainly at the core of what we do, but if it was only STEM, we'd be structured much differently than we are.
Okay, so all right. I'm glad. See, come on now. I love it. Go ahead. Get me together. All right. Okay. I appreciate that. But so we're just going to stay on the STEM part right now, but we're going to get into what you actually do on the other end as well.
Okay.
All right. But some of the things you do in your program, you prep for careers in cybersecurity, biomedical science, computer and game design, and custom engineering. First and foremost, how did the organization start? How did your program start?
Started back in 2009, the end of 2009, 2010. And we started as an after-school program. When I was younger, I had a small business, and the small business had been successful.
Okay.
And I used to go into schools and talk to senior staff, school superintendent, senior staff that selling the software that my company was creating. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times I would give explanation of what I thought was going on in the building. And they used to come back to me and say, when do you ever work in the building? And I say, I never have, but I know what goes on. And so you can take my ideas. And they used to push back and say, no, you don't really know what you're talking about. It was heavy pushback on that. So I got to a point in my small business that I decided I was going to sell my portion of it. I had two other partners, and I wanted to sell it and go to work in a school building. And I decided I was going to really learn what it's like to teach in a school building. And that because I really had some strongly held beliefs about education. So, educators don't make a whole lot of money. And so, by selling my business, I was able to afford to take a significant pay cut in order to become a full-time teacher. So I went into the building with one set of expectations about what it's like to teach. And the primary motivator was that I really wanted to give back to boys who were coming up in the same kind of environment I was. I was specifically targeted boys because I know boys. I was one, I'd be hanging out, so it wasn't going to work for me to connect with girls the same way, even though I knew I could do some things to help them and reach out to them as they move forward. But my primary thing was to help boys because middle school can be a real training ground for what's going to happen in the rest of your life. And I was hoping that I could really start making a difference with guys in that age group. So I came into the building with the idea I was going to be a teacher, but that was going to be more than a teacher. I was going to be a role model, a mentor. I was going to really help get guys going in the right direction. That was going to be my mission. And because I really wanted to be heard and I knew what had happened when I was just selling software, I decided I needed a credential that was going to have people listen to me. So when I became a teacher, then I didn't want to just become a teacher. I wanted to get a doctorate in education so that people would also say, he's got a credential, he's worthy of a listen. And so that's what I did when I came to the building. I also got the doctorate at the same time. And that was the name of that tune. So when as soon as I finished the doctorate, then that's when we started Future Kings. And the idea was that we were going to try and teach entrepreneurship the theory behind it was that if guys knew that there was a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, that they might be willing to go through all of the struggle that it takes to get to that pot of gold. And so the after school program was really centered around boys, number one, and then providing them with a lot of the motivational structures, some of the training, either hardware or software, entrepreneurial training, and kind of combine all that into one thing that would engage them, make them want to come back, and then make them see a shiny future. And so that was the genesis for Future Kings. And even now we're doing pretty much the same thing, but we do it much differently than we did back then. We're no longer an after-school activity. We became an IRS-approved 501c3 in 2014. That was another big launch point for us. But the seeds for our current operation started in that 2009, 2010 timeframe when I decided I was going to start this after-school activity for boys.
Okay. All right. And well, you know what? I like that. And that's going to bridge us into the other part of what Future Kings is pretty much about as well, because as we hit on before, all right, you already had a business, sold the business because you felt that, you had a calling going into education and actually teaching something that will be of value. I just had a person on my talk show not too long ago. We were talking about the return on investment when it comes to education. Mm-hmm. How sometimes, we're not prepared for that return on investment because all we've been told or we've been told to believe is if you go to school, you'll get an education, you'll get a job, and you'll be something. Well, yes and no, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. It doesn't always work like that, Right. So, the fact that you all are, okay, hey, this is what we do. We're building a career, man. We have this mentorship going on, we have people, who can, help you, guide you towards that career on that end. But on the, human side, the social side, you know what I'm saying? Like the everyday side, we're about to talk about that right now.
Okay.
So right. My first question to you, well, not my first question, but my next question to you would be, what kind of challenges did you see these kids originate from, like when your program first started and to, pretty much right now, and how is your program helping those kids overcome those
challenges? And I have ideas now that I did not have in the beginning. Okay. But and I can get to that, but there was when I first started, I thought that I could help everybody. I couldn't imagine having somebody that I couldn't help. Right. And life has taught me that everybody doesn't want to be helped, and so I recognize that I'm better off putting my energy into kids who want to be helped than in trying to convert somebody who hasn't made that choice yet. So when I came into the education, then I did have some stars in my eyes, but I also had some reality-based ideas as well. It was shocking to me. I grew up in an environment and had always believed that every teacher loved every kid, that every single teacher wanted the best for all their students, so I just expected that, okay? And I expected that although I knew there would be some bias in schools, I didn't expect it to be as prevalent as it was. And I have guys who came into 6th grade, and boys and girls, who I would see coming into my middle school as 6th graders. But lots of boys of color who were coming into 6th grade who had already been beaten down by the system. who had already been beaten down, and so they believed that they could not be successful. They came out of elementary school thinking that their life was over, that they really didn't have any chance at a real future. And that was all based around how they had been treated in elementary school. And then they get to middle school and it's more of the same. That there are some teachers which are really, really motivated and reach out and love kids and love boys of color. And there's a lot who don't. And I was able to see firsthand that it's not even an equal mix. My experience was that for every teacher who was really, really into to supporting and building up Black boys, that there were 3 who didn't see it that way. I was able to see lots of differences in the way our boys get treated from the way that other boys get that other boys get treated. And it became easier and easier for me to understand how these guys were getting beat up in elementary school, how they were getting beat up in middle school, and probably how they're going to beat up in high school, and why they would really think that they had nothing, no future. We came out of the students in our school. The school I was at was about 50% Black, about 45% Hispanic, and about 85% of students in the school were on free and reduced meals. Means that they come from families that are economically challenged, okay? So these are the kind of kids whose parents do not come to PTA meetings, who don't show up at school board meetings, who are largely forgotten because they don't have an advocate in the network for them. So that was kind of the environment that I was in. So being Don Quixote, I took it on myself, to be their advocate, and it was amazing the amount of abuse that I took in trying to defend some of the boys. We would have teachers meetings where a teacher would complain about one of the students in the Future Kings program. And because I was mentoring them, was taking responsibility for them, I always took it as part of my responsibility as their leader to try to smooth things out, realizing why they were beaten down and what their attitude was and how they felt they were being disrespected and not appreciated and not being heard, that I felt there was part of my role to speak on their behalf and try to bridge the gap and be a mediator between the teachers and the student as a way of helping the teacher to understand the student's perspective and why the student was responding to that teacher the way that he was. And I thought that if the participant program could understand the teacher's attitude and what the teacher was saying, that he might be more responsive and willing to listen more. For example, it wasn't unusual for a teacher to attack a student in class, and he would react to that by attacking back, okay? So now he is attacking the authority, and in that classroom, that teacher is never going to back down. And when the teacher goes to the principal, that principal's obligated pretty much to defend the teacher, even though it was a situation that could have been easily resolved with a little bit of understanding. So I would try to mediate those kind of things. And often I would try to get the teacher and the student together away from everybody else as a way of trying to work through the difficulties. But the reaction to that was I became a target as well. That the same way that the teachers were attacking the students, they would report me to the principal saying that I was trying to interrupt their class, that I was trying to interfere in their teaching, that I was doing, they had all kinds of stuff that they were pointing against me, and it just made it much easier for me to understand that that this is not just about the guys being young. It's just as much about having a black face in the building pushing back against a colleague. You know, that there's a certain mentality in the building, and you can ride with that or not ride with it. I'm a bull in a china shop, so I wasn't always political in the way that I was, approaching people. And maybe I could have been successful if I was more tactful, but I tried being tactful, okay? And maybe I have more of the boys in me than I thought. But whatever it was, I got attacked just as harshly as the boys did. And it taught me lots of lessons about what these guys must have gone through. As a teacher and an adult, I have some experiences. As a 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old kid, you don't have those same experiences. And as someone who is in the building with a doctorate degree, I've got some credibility that an 11, 12, year 13-year-old who's getting D's and F's in class doesn't have, okay? And if they're going to treat me like that, then I know what they're going to do with those boys, okay? Which is, what I became a champion for. So when I say I'm Don Quixote, okay, that's why I'm Don Quixote, man, because I didn't mind battling those windmills.
Well, and let me just say, one of the words I used was value. And value can be seen in so many ways.
Yeah.
Basically, you are a person of value to those boys because before you, who else was sticking up for them? They had no one else, So, the fact that you would go to bat for some of them, even though you were getting pushed back on yourself, that speaks volume. So you could be a person that they trust, and that's a person of value, because trust me, as a person who does work with youth in the school system, I know how hard that trust can really come.
Yeah.
Everything that you speak of, trust me, I know exactly where you're coming from, and it just doesn't have to be on certain ends, but, we really don't talk about it enough,
Right.
Educational trauma.
Right.
There's a lot of educational trauma, especially with like young African-American boys, starting in grammar school, working through middle school to high school, and that's how you get the whole, school to prison pipeline going.
Right.
And, you have those who, have been beaten down so much, they figure, why else should I go on? And, sometimes other things play a factor into that: home life, neighborhood, just mental health, things of that nature. So, man, like, hats off to you for just being an advocate and just being there and then just going to bat and then getting the pushback yourself and then really seeing it from a whole different aspect. Like, okay, I know how you're giving it to me. I can take it. Like, I can understand, but I can only imagine an 11, 12-year-old who doesn't even have my level of, of understanding of anything, and you're doing it to them. And by the time they, hit 8th grade, if they aren't, failing or what have you, because sometimes you get a lot of that, as a person who's worked in the middle school, sometimes, I've seen it where, you've had young, African-American men who are on the cusp of failing. And sometimes, I'm just going to be real with it, they're like taken out of the gen ed class and they're put in sped classes to pretty much preserve them, from leaving the school so the school can save money. And, they get money for them being in sped. Yeah, I said it. Yes, people. Yeah. Truth get told on this show. I'm just telling y'all right now. Truth get told on this show. Trust me, I know. Man. Yeah. We'll talk about that all day, but that's a talk for a whole nother show. You know what I'm saying? We're not here for that. We're here for Future King. We're gonna turn it back to Future King. All right.
Okay. So when you understand our background and where we're coming from and what those back. So something else that these guys didn't have so many of our parents grew up in the era that grew up in a different era. And so when a teacher calls home complaining about their son, especially his behavior, lots of times that is taken at face value. And the parent only knows that the teacher is complaining about their child. They have no idea what the teacher may have done to instigate the issue. All they know is that the teacher is complaining, and they automatically take the teacher's side. So now you've got a young man who may have been personally insulted in front of the entire class,
right,
reacted to it in a way where he couldn't win. And then when he expects he's going to have some backup at home, he doesn't have the backup at home as expecting. And so the problem gets exacerbated. And in all this time, boys are going through all kinds of changes about their manhood, going from being a kid toward becoming a man. There's lots of things that may be changing with their body that they're dealing with that they don't like to talk about, but every man knows what I'm talking about. And they're going through all these different things and figuring out how they fit in the world, and just so many things they got to deal with. And then even areas that are supposed to be safe harbors for them, they find that they don't have a safe harbor. And so those are all some of the dynamics that we were dealing with in Future Kings. And when we moved from being an after-school activity into being a nonprofit into it being a nonprofit corporation, then it allowed us to really expand how we're going to serve some of those needs that we recognize. I know that what's going on in the school is still going on in the school, but at least we can carve out a group of boys that we can work with, and the door is always open for more boys that we can work with. And what we talk about is being, what I talk about is, God for us is being coachable, meaning that, they're willing to listen, they want to do the right thing. And if that's all they have to bring to the table. We have guys in our program, I know this is off your question a little bit, but we've got guys in our program that are identified as ED in the regular school day, emotionally disturbed, okay?
Yeah.
And we got others that are labeled as LD or SLD, now that's specific learning disability during the regular school day. And at the same time, we've got guys in our program that are identified as talented and gifted. But when you watch them working together in their various cohorts, you can't tell who is ED, who is not ED. These are boys who are working together, getting along, and people think that is unusual in an educational environment. But when they see it on a sports team, they just kind of expect it, okay? You can have a sports team and you can have a guy on that team who can't even read his own name, playing against a guy who is a straight 4.0, and they're getting together as teammates. But when we come into a training opportunity like we have, where they're learning, say, cybersecurity, and one guy is identified as having a learning disability, and he's working side by side and collaborating with another guy who is in the talented and gifted program, and they're getting along together and helping each other, and you can't tell which one is LD and which one is not. That says to me that there's something wrong in the K-12 system, that there's ways that we can get these people to work together and not have to label them, but instead of trying to make the kid fit into the system, we ought to look at who we got right now and then design systems that work for how these kids are. And so that's kind of what we've done in Future Kings.
Well, let me just say this. First and foremost, I love it. I'm just going to say real quick, and we can get on course real quick. Education is not education. The education that we grew up with is not the education of today.
Right.
It needs to be an overhaul, because because we just live in a totally different world. For whatever reason, the powers to be have not caught up to that. And as you said before, you know, you've seen, you know, kids who are labeled, you know, learning disability, specific learning disability, next to, you know, those who are considered talented, and you don't know who's who. And as you said, on sports, you know, teams, it's expected because that's entertainment. But when you're working together, you know, trying to actually like achieve something and build together, and it's something totally different. And now, you know, it sort of like crushes all of those other myths. So why do we even have these labels, you know, to begin with, to pretty much separate those from, you know, those. But hey, I love it. I love everything you're doing, man. I love everything you're doing. So let me just ask this question to you, and you know, we can go ahead and like try to wrap it up or what have you. In your opinion, you know, a program like Future Kings, even though you know, have the, you know, STEM program up front, but why is a program like Future Kings very important to African Americans? Even though you just went through some of the, you know, examples you were talking about, school, what have you, but outside of that, you know.
Yeah, so much what we do is build around lessons for school, but we are very, very different from school. Starting with the fact that we're not focused on state standards, and we have the luxury of being an educational institution, an educational organization, without having to be confined by that. So state standards, state tests, that doesn't mean anything to us. We are completely focused on life after high school. Everything we're doing is meant to be performance-based. So we give our kids can earn adult level certifications by being in our program. We've got cybersecurity adult level certifications, adult level certifications for computer game design, for our engineering programs. While they're with us, they can earn those adult level certifications as part of the program. But we're also performance-based, so you don't progress with us by just being in the program for a year or 2 years or 5 years. If you can't do the work, then you just don't progress. You're still in our program, but you don't earn that certificate, and you don't earn the additional opportunities just because you've been here for a long time. You got to be able to do the work, and you got to be able to progress. And those are all things that people can understand, that they will understand, and will help prepare them for life after high school. In school, during the school day, and some of this is based on necessity, because if we tried to do the same thing in our program that they do during the school day, nobody really want to come to that. In our program, these guys get up on, they're in class with us at 9 o'clock on Saturday morning, and they do that twice a month. And they're there with us for 4 hours each time, and nobody's making them do it. In some cases, parents will punish their son by saying, if you don't do what I tell you, then you can't go to Future Kings. That is wrong, but that's how much the boys love what they're doing when they come to us. And it's not just, it's for them, the fact that it is performance-based, that it's hands-on, that we encourage that talk back. You know, when we go to church, preacher gets saying something we like, he wants to talk back to him, and we're talking back, okay? If you do that during a regular school day, now you're in trouble, okay? You may have a great question. The teacher is not ready to answer that question yet. And so you're a student, you want to get that question answered while it's hot in your head, but the teacher doesn't want to hear it. And if you call out, you're in trouble. With us, when the teacher's talking, you got a question, bring it out. Let's talk about it right now while it's hot in your head, because I know what I want to say. I don't know what you're hearing. And so it's best for me to answer your question while you have it, and not wait until I go to a commercial break. okay, is best if you get the question out right then.
I got you. I got you.
And so you know how we get. If I'm talking to you and you got a question while I'm talking, you might interrupt and say, "What are you talking about, King?" Well, that's what we want in our program as well. That there's a way to respectfully interrupt, but interrupt, okay? Because we're trying to answer your question while you have that question, and that's how we do all of our programs. And the boys love the fact that they are free to interact with themselves and each other. We got guys in our program who are ADHD, and some behavior patterns with ADHD students, it doesn't affect us because we're responding to him as a person, and we're responding to him also with what his needs might be. So if he's coming at us with a question that's on point, but it's at the wrong time, he's not going to be chastised with us. If he is just seemingly not paying attention, we're not going to call him out because we think he's not paying attention to us. He might very well be paying attention, even though his eyes are all over the room, even though he is tapping a pencil or playing with the computer keys. He might be hearing every single word, but his situation doesn't allow him to act in the robotic way that we're expecting lots of people to act. So we give them that freedom to be themselves as long as they're mastering the material and they ask questions when they have it, and they understand it's performance-based. And all that stuff leads them toward being prepared for life after high school. You get to your regular job, there is no such thing as being in a class or being in one environment for 45 minutes and then getting up and transferring to another one for 45 minutes. There's no such thing as you getting promoted just because you've been there longer. I mean, some union jobs is that way, okay? But you can be a teacher for 40 years, get your pay increases, but never get a promotion because you just didn't make the grade for that promotion.
Right.
And that's that way in all kinds of jobs. You can have an entry-level job in real life and never progress beyond that entry-level job just because you don't put the work in. We're trying to get the guys to understand that's how real life is. And so our program is centered around and targeted toward life after high school, and every single thing we're doing is targeted toward their life after high school, their workplace life, their career paths, all that kind of stuff, which is going to be important to them after high school. We're training them starting in 6th grade and staying with them all the way until they graduate from our program. And then even then, we now have an alumni program, so we can stay in touch with these guys even after they graduate from our Future Kings program.
Okay, all right. See, there you go, ladies and gentlemen, man. 6th grade on through even the alumni program. So, there's always help. There's always a chance, man. There's always a chance, but you got to build. You just can't come in and just think everything's just going to happen for you. You got to do your work now. All right. So if people want to get in contact with, your program, how do they do that?
Well, our website is www.future-kings at www.future-kings.org. They can go there and get some information about us. If they want to, there is a contact form on there they can send me. They can fill the contact form. I see every single form that is submitted, and we'll get back to you. If not the same day, somebody get back to you within 24 hours.
Okay. All right. So there it is, ladies and gentlemen. Man, future-kings.org.
Yep.
All right, there it is. Okay. So look here, Mr. Arik King. We've come to the last question of the show. Question my show's known for. So I gotta ask, what is the one word that best describes you and your program, and why?
Okay. Let me give you separate words, okay?
Okay.
For me, I'm going to say mission-driven. Okay, so mission-driven. Okay.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Okay.
We let me go with that? Okay.
I'm gonna let you go with that.
Okay.
Mission dash driven. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, all right. We just gonna rattle it. Okay, bro. Okay. No. Cool. Okay. So that's you. What would you describe Future Kings as?
And it should I be one word?
One word.
Future.
Okay. So I'm a hold man. So hold on. Everybody, once again, listen to the 4 words I use to describe Mr. Arik King and his program from the beginning. Careers, preparation, value, generational. I feel we covered all that in this interview today because that's what Mr. Arik King's providing with his program, Future Kings, to the young, African-American youth of Virginia, correct?
Yeah.
Virginia, okay? And man, looking to spread it out, but we're gonna get into that, future shows down the line, off camera and all that good stuff. But man, I just want to thank you for coming on and really talking about your program and really, just giving us probably a little inside of what goes on with you and your program and how everything got started. Because on the real, I feel people, they think they know what goes on in school. And as you said, sometimes you have parents who are, a little misinformed about the information, and it can take the, educator side instead of the child side. And that can cause friction, especially with young boys. And man, those are our future kings, and we want to see them, provide for the next generation that they're going to bring forward, so they can add the value and they have the careers because they're being prepped by my man, Mr. Arik King over here. And man, we go out and we become great citizens of the, world. All right.
If I can just embellish that a little bit.
Okay.
We just had our annual gala last week.
Mm-hmm.
And the theme of the gala was lifting our voices for great futures. And part of that lifting our voice is something that every one of us have. Some of the points that we made during the gala was that we have to lift our voices to hold our politicians accountable for what's going on in our schools. They have to, a lot of times they will talk to us before the election about what they want to do for our schools, and then afterwards, we don't know they're there. And then we also have, and then the other thing is we have to lift our voices to hold our teachers and school administrators responsible, because there are some teachers and administrators who love our kids and do the best they can, and there's others who don't, and it's up to us to identify who's on our side and who's not, and then to hold those building personnel accountable who are not on the side of our kids. And you can't just leave it to others. Every one of us has a obligation, I think, that if you care about your kid and you care about the youth of today, you got to do something, even if it's a little something, but you got to do something in order to help lift your voices in defense of our children, and don't leave it to somebody else.
There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Don't leave it to someone else, man. Look, empower people, empower. And you know what? I think that's the word I'm getting from all this. Empower yourself, empower your children, Therefore, when they do come to Future Kings, they're already getting more empowerment, and they're putting that forth, and man, more power. All right. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Word with Ty Brownlow. I've been your host, Ty Brownlow. Remember, no one is worthless. No story is worthless. You can follow me on all social media platforms at Word with Ty Brownlow, or you can just go to my website, tybrownlow.com. Get this wonderful interview, plus other great interviews. Mr. Arik King, I thank you for being a guest on my show, sir. We out, people. Peace.